Welcome to For the Record, an unfiltered view on current trends and timeless advice for surviving in the aesthetics industry. Whether you're an injector, practice owner, sales rep, or marketer, it's time to set the record straight. Each week, we cut through the chaos and showcase diverse perspectives and winning ideas from the best minds in the industry. I'm your host, Dr. Tiffany Hall, Chief Growth Officer at Aesthetic Record. Now, let's get started on this week's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to episode 3, season 2 of For the Record. And today we are in the studio, which is a big new fun thing for us here in our new studio in Dallas, Texas. So we have an incredible guest today who is talking my language, from business acumen to financial acumen to the whole thing around startups and how to build your practice and grow your practice and all the data and KPIs. We are here today with Jessica Nunn, who is the founder of Maven Financial Partners. She comes from a Big Four accounting background. She's been doing financial advising for, I think, quite some time. And she's now made her big impact in the aesthetics industry, helping business owners with new med spas, growing med spas, really take off and run and manage their P's and Q's, if you will. So on her website, it says she's a financial dragon slayer.
Ooh, yes. We've got a lot of verbs that describe what we do because, we want to speak everyone's language.
Which I think is really fun because our industry is obviously about marketing and words and verbiage. And so I think you are probably a dragon slayer, but many of our AR accounts use Jessica's firm to really get their books tightened up and to think about their growth strategies and what comes next. And she's here today to tell us all the things she has in that big old brain of hers around financial acumen. So welcome to our show.
Thank you. And it is so beautiful here. You guys, there's so many crazy lights and cameras, and it is so just nice to be here in person and do this in such a fancy, high technology environment.
Well, this is Hollywood, Texas, if you will. No, I'm just kidding. But we met in 2020 at AMSPA, I think it was, and you're about to go on stage to speak, and I was speaking as well. We were both a little bit nervous that day. It was kind of a new thing for both of us at the AMSPA stage. And now you're like a seasoned veteran professional who's doing talks and podcasts and webinars and videos. You've made a big splash with presenting.
Well, thanks. It is a little bit easier. I always joke that, I'll be freaking out right before I go up there. And I tell the audience, I'm like, look, I am in spreadsheets all day. I am diving in deep to your numbers and your practice. I'm in the trenches with you. I am not a professional speaker, so know that before we get started, just to, make me feel a little bit better. But it does get easier, and I definitely appreciate all the exposure that everyone's given us.
Yeah, I feel like you guys have really blown up. You came from SkyTel, now with Maven. I feel like you're really everywhere because in our industry specifically, as we all know, business acumen is sometimes the last thing that you think about. You think about your med spa, building your practice, the injection part of it, getting your patients in, marketing. And then it's like, wait a minute, I've got to make money. I've got to look at my profitability. Do I buy the machine or not buy the machine? Do I hire another person? And it sort of, unfortunately, comes last most often, which it comes first for you. So tell us all about what you guys do at Maven to kind of kick us off.
Yeah, so we really act like the CFO for aesthetic practices. Okay. So we like data. We're like you guys. We love the numbers. We love the data. We take a look at financial statements. If your financials aren't good, we're going to tell you. We're going to help you get your financial statements in order. We look at KPIs. We want you to use your software as best as you can. We want to have reliable, awesome, to the T numbers that we can rely on in understanding your business and predicting your revenue going forward. So we really love to digest those numbers and then spit them back out to you in a way that you can understand. We're not going to say well, your gross margin was 77%. And no one wants to hear that. No one is interested in those kinds of words. So we do say things like, listen, your injector isn't producing like we would expect her to. What can we do to increase her revenue per hour? And then when we do that, how are we paying people, right? Are we profitable on our people, on our services? Where's our money going? Let's show you where your money's going. Where's your money coming from? How much should you expect to make next month, the month after? What should be in your checking account in 3 months? How do we know if we have a problem? So all those things we like to review with our clients in normal human manner. A lot of people, when I tell them what they do, they're like, wait, aren't CFOs usually, old white guys?
Yes, many of them are.
Right? And we're like, well, that's the beauty of us. We're not. We're usually we have men and women doing our consulting, but we're young, we're energetic. We like to think we're fun. And so we take those numbers, and our meetings aren't miserable. When we're doing financial meetings, they'll tell us at the end, I'm just learning so much about business. I'm learning so much about my practice. And I end the day loving these meetings with you guys.
Well, yeah, because they want to make money and you're telling them how to do it. I'm sure that you're the blessing that they've been waiting for.
But it's surprising for a lot. I'll tell you guys, sometimes when we first start meeting with clients, they're very nervous. Because if you think about money, Money sometimes is very scary. We have some clients that'll say, well, growing up, we never had enough money. Money is a scary thing. It's always bad, a bad context. So I don't want to talk about it. I just don't want to know. I'll bury my head in the sand. If I have money in my checking account, I'm going to assume I'm okay, right? And they don't know that they're running out of money quickly. So when we meet with them, a lot of times they're freaked out, they're stressed out, they don't know what they don't know. They think we're going to, tell them that their practice is horrible and their business is terrible and they should just stop now. So when we go in and we're more like cheerleaders, we're saying, look, these are the things that are going great. And you have a lot of stuff on your plate. You're a business owner, you're busy, you have marketing, you have clinical things you got to think about. The team is a whole thing to think about. Finances adds a lot, but let's tell you what's working well, what you don't need to spend so much time worrying about. Let's identify the things that are really going to move the needle for you, and that'll pare down what you've got going on. Let's say, okay, you got these 2 injectors, let's get them a little busier. Or listen, your rent is really high. What can we do about that? Can you negotiate the lease? Let's identify the things that are going to move the needle for you and help you focus on what's going to really improve the business. But it can be super stressful at first, I'm telling you. And I've even seen them kind of in the meetings, and I hang up and I'm like, I got to call them. That was horrible for them. They're so stressed about the finances. And then a couple months in, they get confidence and they understand and they see how it works. They see this is how I drive revenue. This is where my money's going. Okay, I don't need to freak out anymore. I can make a plan. I can predict the future, all those things. So it's the most fun job that I've ever had. It is so great telling people listen, this is what's going great and this is what we can improve. And look how great your practice can be. We hung up with a recent client who's in California. So it takes a lot to buy a house there. But we showed him his profitability. Look, if you do these things for 2022, this is how much money you'll take home. And he said, oh, I can buy a house for me and my little boy. Tears, that's changing lives.
Yeah, I feel like the software, I feel the same way when people call us. They're like, wait a minute, I can actually do this job. This is not so hard. I mean, the sheer joy on their face when they finally figure it out, or even how hard it is in the beginning. Same thing for us, right? When they're learning our software, it's like, it's so hard. And then one day they're like, oh my gosh, now I know what I'm doing and it's getting easier. But I think there's a part between what I do and what you do where there's this magical connection, because people come to us and say, we want the reports inside of aesthetic record to give us everything, to tell us our entire business, KPIs, indicators, everything. And I'm going to give you a report, which means nothing to you. It is words on a page, numbers on a page. I can't bring it to life. I can't consult with you. And so we send people to you all the time to say, if you want this to make sense for your business and to have a story behind it and meaning, you've got to call a financial advisor or a consultant or a planner to tell you what the hell it means, because we're just going to give you the number. And I think oftentimes in our industry, people get KPIs. They're KPI obsessed. Give me that benchmark. But what does that benchmark even mean?
What do I do with it?
Are you benchmarking against a Ferrari or a Ford Focus? Because it's not going to be the same between my practice and your practice. So walk us through kind of, if people bring you reports here's all my stuff. Where do you even start with a client?
And we get the same thing with CPAs. I'm a CPA by trade, right? Started doing tax returns, sacrificed that life, right, to move into something much more fun, I will say. But we are different. Obviously, we don't do the bookkeeping. But what happens is clients will say, well, don't I just need a CPA? Shouldn't my CPA do that? Shouldn't my practice management software do that? Shouldn't this stuff, really, what are you doing? But we're telling the story. We're using your data, whether it's your financial statements, whether it's your software, whether it's your KPIs, to tell the story of your practice. And the thing is, you probably know the story deep down. All the time we'll hear, I knew that was the case. I just had a feeling. We're going to prove it out in the data. But we make it, again, easily digestible, and we tell the story so that you can change the story. You don't like the story? Let's take the data, change the story. But it's the same way with financial statements as KPIs. You get it. Now what? What even does this mean? I'm going to put it in this drawer because I don't know, and it doesn't look it's so Greek. So when we take that and we make it meaningful, we digest it, we turn it into a plan. I think that's where it all comes together.
Well, last year I spent a good 60 days of my life, give or take, with a CPA.
Oh, that was the most fun 60 days you ever had, I'm sure.
Bullet in my brain.
Yes,
bullet.
I know.
But he was looking at the aesthetic record software for his particular client and wanted all these random numbers and random slicing and dicing and all these things that absolutely, from an industry perspective, didn't mean anything to anybody. I didn't understand it. And I kept telling the client, like, what you're asking for, this is not relevant to our business. Like, this is not the way a medical practice is run. And this person had run restaurants. So cost of goods sold, is fractional pennies on napkins and forks. And, we're looking at like a filler syringe. So all these things, we spent 65 days basically on these things that were completely random and not important. And he was billing the client the whole time because he was like, oh, we have to have all these things. I'm going to keep asking for reports. But I'm not getting paid to give you all these things. But I look at him and eventually I said to him, I appreciate what you're looking for, but you're just digging for things that aren't important here. Nothing that you're asking for has anything to do with the business growing or even your taxes, financial stuff. But it was just this need to get all these numbers that were irrelevant. And so I find for us, it's often that analysis paralysis. They keep asking for reports. I'm like, what are you going to do with it? Well, I don't know. I just heard I have to have it. I just heard I need this report in order to be in business. So when you think about the things that are like, your top list of things that are most important for an aesthetics practice, what are the numbers that, when you go to bed at night, you're thinking about, these are the 4 things or 5 things I have to know about a company?
Yeah, no, good question. And I want to touch on, too, the benchmarking thing. Because if you are comparing yourself, before we go into that, to a Ford versus a Ferrari, I always tell clients and tell people, in all my speaking, no, I'm just kidding. The times that I have spoken, I do love to say, listen, people will throw benchmarks at you all day long. They'll say, something's not right because your advertising is too high or your rent is too high. And I always say, you need to figure out your best practice. What is your best practice? What do you want it to be? Compare you against your best practice. Because you guys know they're all different, right? Cost structures are going to be different depending on the services you provide, where you are. So don't stress out because you're not matching up with somebody else's benchmark. Like, let's get you where you should be. But as far as like the information people need to know, one thing that we're really harping on our clients now is to use your software correctly. I know that's like
preach. Say that again for the folks in the back.
Use your software correctly, everybody. And the reason is that, junk in, junk out. Like, we really need to make sure that when we're looking at your revenue per hour per provider, that it's right. Right? When we're looking at capacity, that it's right, because that's how we're predicting your future performance. So we've really got to get that right. So takeaway, get your checking out process, your patient checkout process right, so that we can rely on that good data. Secondly, that's what's going to predict your revenue, right? One of the most important things on your financials is your revenue. So get those KPIs right. Revenue per hour per provider is what we love. Predict that revenue. Then, of course, your cost of goods sold, your consumables, what it takes to do the job, right? What it takes to do the work, to take care of the patient. We got to know that. So we really like to pull those out, identify them separately so that we can say, listen, every dollar that comes into your practice, 25 cents out the door, 50
Immediately,
cents out the door. What it is, like, you're not even going to see it,
Yep.
Then we want to know, what are our big ticket items? Payroll. If someone is going to go wrong, if someone is going to overspend, it's probably in payroll. And what's the reason, right? You can't walk into your office, your clinic, and say, the financial people are saying that we're too high on payroll, so half of y'all are out. Y'all decide I'll be back, right? That's not the answer. Usually it comes down to, again, your revenue. So someone's not pulling their weight. It's your revenue per hour. It's your revenue that's too low and not supporting the team that's there. So that's, again, why we like to dive into the revenue. The other one that gets out of whack a lot is rent. That's a big cost, a big expense, right? But what does that come down to? You're not bringing in enough revenue for the space. So we have a saying where we say it's probably not your expenses, because it's probably not. And when we're talking with people about finances, they get really stuck on their expenses. I know I'm spending too much. Even my husband, he's a business owner, and he'll come in and say, oh, I'm just spending too much money. I'm like, well, tell me, what are you spending? Well, this was $75 and this was $100, and it's just so much money out the door. And I'm like, no, focus on your revenue, please. Stop with the $75 thing, right? But we nitpick, we worry about every little thing because we don't know what to focus on. But it's probably the revenue. We need to look at our revenue drivers. We need to look at our KPIs and see what makes sense for our practice.
Yeah, I think about revenue, especially in this business. I know you work in dental also, excuse me, which is less promotional, I think, in nature. They don't do a lot of the big promotions that we do in aesthetics. But I often hear people who think, my top line looks amazing. I've made so much money this month. And I'm like, but you discounted 50% of that. So the revenue, the subtotal looks incredible. But you forgot about the fact that for every $1 you made, you discounted 75 cents of it. So I feel like we spend a lot of time here at AR explaining to people, like, your discount report. We have a thing called the discount report for those of you who don't use our software that tells you, like, fractionally speaking, what percent of that dollar you made did you actually make. Then there's processing fees, there's COGS, to your point. point, there's payroll, there's all these things. And I do a lot of consulting around commission structures and payroll structures for companies because obviously, you guys know, commission in aesthetics, if you're a medical provider, is not legal. We call that fee splitting here. Just side note, disclaimer. But people forget to think about the net. Like, what is the actual net? And they're commissioning people off the top line. I'm like, but you forgot the discount that you gave, or you forgot the COGS, or you forgot, the marketing expense for them to get their butt in the chair that you're paying, to your point, when they walk in the front door. And they commission off, off the gross and not the net. And it makes me flipping crazy.
Yeah, we've been spending a lot of time talking about discounts because we do have some practices that are not as profitable as they should be. And the number one thing is either they're not like pricing things right, their membership or whatnot, or they're just discounting the heck out of everything. And you really, if you think about it, that's another marketing cost. So if you're already spending 10% on marketing and you're discounting, we know that we already said 25 cents is off the top, right? So you got your payroll, 25 cents is off the top for those supplies. Now you got to advertise. You're not leaving very much for yourself with profit. So you really, I'm glad you have that report. People need to look at it and see what's happening.
Well, and the same thing is true on the other side, where we have customers who do pay off the net, which they're doing the right thing, but they discount. So the injectors say, I'm not going to inject that product because it's on a discount. I'm not going to make as much money. I'm going to inject this product instead. If they're doing like a true, commission model. And so the injectors start to make the decision based on the compensation plan, which as a business owner hurts you, right? Because if you're discounting it to get it off the shelf, it's going to be, expired inventory. All of a sudden that discount makes it really hard to say yes as the injector. So I think discounts in general, they are problematic for a business, period, because you're, again, giving away money. And obviously there's, you've got experience, all these things. But we were discussing before we came online, things like memberships, recurring revenue, plans, long-term treatment plans and things. What is your thought on that kind of a setup for practice?
No, we love that. So, I will say that getting your fee structure and how patients can pay you set up right and smart is going to be a great key to success. So we have a mutual client that does a treatment plan for the whole year, which I love this idea. Like, let me go in, tell me what I need for the whole year. Let's just knock it out. Just give it to me, right? And then they price that so that you're paying that in your installments over the whole year. Like, it's different than a membership. There's no discounts. I'm paying for the treatment, but you're making it easy for me to pay. I love that. I know what I need. I know what I'm doing. You're making it easy for me to pay. So we really like making things easy for people to pay. Easy for people to do, right? Meet everyone where they are, that whole thing. So if you can get payments online, making payment plans, you're using some sort of service to get payment plans going so that people can afford the treatment that you're recommending to them. We love that. But while we're talking about fees, one thing we're really pushing is understand your fees, especially in relation to your costs, because we all know these costs are going up, right? Nothing is getting cheaper right now. So not only should you really watch those discounts, but we're really encouraging people to raise fees.
Yeah, I think that there are practices who I look at their inventory as we put their things in our system, and they have the same price for like wrestling that they had 10 years ago. It's not $4.95 a syringe anymore, guys. It's like $8.50. They've never increased their money or their fees, and so they're working 10 times as hard for the same revenue. And then again, the cost of goods sold is extraordinarily high still. So they're like making less revenue and less profit, and they're working like
and their
maniacs.
team wants a raise, right? Their costs are going up, and you can be creative with it. Raise your fees, but then use it as a marketing promotion. Kristen had this idea where she was telling clients, like, listen, tell them get in now at last year's pricing. Like, do something to get people in at last year's pricing, and then you're going to have your new fee structure going forward. And patients aren't as sensitive to it as providers think and business owners think. They'll like, oh, I don't want to raise fees. No one's going to accept treatment. It's all this stuff. But when you look at it, it's like, that's $40 more for their appointment. It's fine. It sounds worse than it is. No one's going to remember what they paid last month. Like, it's going to be fine. Just do it. You're worth it.
But I love the treatment plan idea, to your point, because I'm a millennial on the very high, barely by like a month. I'm a millennial. And, we've been paying for cell phones that way for 15 years. As long as an iPhone's been out, you can pay this incremental fee for your iPhone. And I think in a retention strategy, you're not going to leave that practice because you're already locked into this 1-year commitment with the practice. You're going to, if you want extra new fun things, you're going to go to that practice to get them because you're already kind of in bed with them. And so I believe the retention strategy of a treatment plan or membership plan is so much better than the one-time discount, or even
absolutely.
like open house or the things that you do to flash in the pan things. But thinking about the long-term vision for a practice, Do you see a difference in practices that have a recurring model versus those who are like, buy here, pay here, instant cash? Like, what's the difference? If you're going to compel us to all move our model to treatment plans, what's the compelling
Well,
reason
here's
for
what's
that?
interesting is we talk about in our firm, we have a lot of clients that are in the dental space, which is very similar and very parallel to the aesthetic space. And that's how we got into it. Like very similar. And dental is more retail than you would think with the cosmetic and, Invisalign and all these things. Like a lot of it is not, my tooth is broken, but I want to be beautiful. So it does have a lot of similarities. And one thing that dental has been doing really well for a long time is recare. When you leave that dental office, you have your next appointment scheduled. Nobody leaves without an appointment scheduled, right? We go at a certain time frame. We know exactly where we're going to go, and we measure that. We measure recare. We understand in dental like what percentage of patients are getting rescheduled, what percentage aren't, who hasn't been in a certain amount of time. If I was telling you before we started that I'm way behind on everything going on, right? But if the office would have called me and said, hey, you're way behind on stuff, let's get you scheduled, how much easier is it for me to answer the phone and do that versus now I got to call you during business hours, now I got to remember to do, no one remembers that. So make it easy for patients. Online scheduling, call them, get them into a recare system, a retention system, so that you're not having to spend so much money getting new patients. Let's keep the ones we have and keep them coming.
That is the number one challenge that I see across the board. And we say here jokingly, fish in your own pond.
Yes.
The cost of acquisition for a customer, like in plastics for sure, it could be thousands of dollars, right? For a patient in plastics, I think some are $2,000 to get like a facelift patient. Obviously, for non-surgical, it's a little bit cheaper, but it still costs way more to engage a brand new person than it does to say, hey, Jessica, who's already coming in, come get another new thing. And I think people confuse, like, I want leads. I'm like, but what about who's already here, who already invested in you and believed in you? Why don't you bring them back in for something? And that's like a hard pill for people to, they can't get their mind around the fact that their pond is stocked full of really good catfish. Just go fishing.
Well, and then the pond right out from that, or right over from that, is the one of their friends.
Oh, yeah.
So like, why are we not asking for referrals, right? In our treatment, we have patients that we love. Listen, you've been here a long time. I love working with you. Do you have any friends that are looking for a new home? Like, let's get that happening. Honestly, we say that half of your patients should be coming from referrals, and the other half, outside marketing. Otherwise, your spend is just so high.
Yeah, I would envision if we all looked at referrals and retention of our existing patients as opposed to new ones, it'd be a much different financial ballgame from the marketing perspective.
I think so too.
What do you think? What's an average practice, like non-surgical, purely med spa practice? What's like their usual percentage of top line spent on marketing? Do you know? Just
Yeah,
ballpark?
usually like 6 to 10%. So lower if it's a full practice, if it's not necessarily trying to grow, or young, higher if it's young. So 10%, even more if they're really trying to grow or if they're a young practice. But what they're not thinking about again is those discounts and things, because that is not going to show up on your P&L, right? So it's not easy to capture that unless you're intentionally looking at it. But it can be a big cost. We want to do a variety of things, a variety of ways to reach out, and we have all the specials going on and all those things. So it's definitely a big cost. It's something that we've really focused on the dental side, is looking at that internal referrals, what's your existing population, your existing set of patients, getting them back in the door on a regular basis.
Well, I just listened to an Instagram post from Yvonne Delos, who owns a med spa and a big injector school. And she's talking about, before I make a payment or buy something, I want to have like 5x the cash in my account. Again, same kind of thing. She's like, I want to be cash flush. I don't want to have to think about my debt. What's a good rule of thumb for those people who are thinking about growing a business, investing in a device, or trying to buy up on their inventory? Like, is there a good rule of thumb about, because I love debt. I'm a big believer in debt.
I love debt too. Go us.
Sorry,
Me
guys.
too.
Dave Ramsey, eat your words, buddy. I think you have to leverage things to grow. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. And I think in our industry, because people are worried about being burned in this like sort of fly by night, aesthetics industry, they refuse to have any debt and they'll never grow. So give us your like debt to cash ideas here.
Yeah. Okay. So listen, interest rates right now, lowest we've ever seen them, right? I've been doing this when people were buying businesses, buying equipment, and they were paying 12 and 15% interest, and they were still doing it and it still made sense. So you can't tell me it doesn't make sense when you can get it done for 3 to 4%, right? So I'm not saying, you guys, we're not saying go out and borrow all the money and buy all the things, right? You still have to be smart with it. Make sure you're buying things that make sense for your practice, that make sense for you. We still want to make money on these things, but we say keep 3 to 6 months working capital. You'll know what that is if you're looking at your financials, right? It's really what you need to pay your bills for 3 to 6 months. But I'm with you. I think you need, if you're a stable practice, if you're not growing, if you've got monthly recurring revenue, I think you can do less. Get a line of credit. That's additional working capital
You
available
took
to
the
you.
words out of my. I was just thinking about. Tell them about a line of credit. 'Cause
Yes,
people
get
don't
you a
get
line-
those. They don't know
Listen,
what those are.
Get it when you're healthy, when your financials are good. 2021, you're probably healthy. Everyone had a great 2021 for the most part, right? 2021, we all bounced back really well. Take those financials, go to a local community bank or wherever your checking account is, tell them you want a line of credit. You will hopefully never touch it, right? And my husband does this too with his business. He'll be like, I've spent my $75. I don't have any money, And I'm like, listen, use your line of credit. Stop freaking out. Use your line. I don't want to touch it. Do the things you need to do for your business and use your line of credit and get out of here. So we just have to be more willing to, it's taking a risk. You took a risk when you opened the business. You're taking a risk when you're borrowing money. But you know what comes with risk if you do it right is reward. That's how it works.
I think it's all looking at, interest rates. What can I make on it? What did it cost me? And some of these devices, I will tell you, I think are probably not a great choice because the business plan isn't there. The laser device people are so good at their jobs, they can sell a dead man a snow cone stand. And people buy them, and it's like the laser graveyard in the back of the practice. So when you think about a business plan, when someone comes to you and says, Jessica, you know our numbers, you know our books, we have this a great device that we want to buy. Is it a good choice or not? How do you tell them yes or no?
So, we don't say, well, clinically, we don't think, we don't know necessarily, but we can look at it from a financial lens and we'll say, listen, in order to be profitable on this machine, you have to do this much in revenue on it per month. Do you think that's feasible? And of course, the answer is, well, yeah.
Of course
that's
it
easy.
is, because I want it. The answer is always
I know,
yes.
of course. And they told me it was easy, so surely it's easy, right? But how? Let's talk about how, right? Also, will your patient volume support that? Are patients asking for this? Is this something that, ask your marketing firm, are people Googling this in my area? Is this a treatment that people are asking for? Or, what does that look like? And you should get a sense of whether that's something that people around you are looking for. But we don't like to tell people, no, you can't do anything. You can't do that. You can't do this. You can't do that. If you have a healthy practice and a good patient base and you really believe in the treatment and you've used it before, right? Or you really believe in the device and you can finance it smartly, and I'll tell you what I think that means here in a second, then, go for it. But understand what you're getting into, right? Understand what it's going to cost, including any consumables. Understand what it's going to cost and what you have to do in revenue to make it make sense for you.
Yeah, I want to hear about smart financing.
Okay. So I just had this conversation today. So people will say, oh, this interest rate, I have two options here. They'll say I can do a 10-year loan at 5.5%, or I can do a 5-year loan and they're going to do 5%. I don't care about the interest rate and deals like that. That 10-year term is going to make your monthly payment so much lower than the 5-year term. I take the 10-year all day long. You can pay extra if you want. If you're like, I don't want to pay for this thing for 10 years, pay it down if you want. But you have the flexibility to not have that giant payment. So for me, the years, the term, however long the loan is more important than the interest rate. I mean, don't pay 10%. That doesn't make sense, right? But if your choices are a little bit longer for a little bit more in interest rate, take it.
Well, so fun fact, people think I'm crazy for saying this. So to your point, like a car note, I will finance my car an extra year or two because it frees up capital in that month when I'm paying the payment. If I'm going to pay $1,000 or $500, I'd rather pay $500
Yes.
and have $500 more to do other things,
So
invest, etc.
You are talking to a girl who just paid off her car last year that I have had since 2014. Yes, ma'am. But you know what? That car was financed at 1.9%. Do I care? I'll be paying on student loans, you guys, until my daughter goes to college.
Until I'm
That's like
dead.
a lifetime of paying for school, right? Between her and me. I'm happy to do it. My interest rate is 2.3%. Like when you think about inflation, who's winning? Who's winning, right?
I never understood that. I have friends, medical school, friends who've gone to medical school, and they pay these giant medical school notes up front. Like, I want to pay off my medical school loans in 2 years. Why? You just took all the working capital that you had to go buy a business, open a practice, and put it all against a debt that you basically aren't going to get anything out of now. Like this is a lagging thing, right? It's already happened ex post facto. I'm like, just finance it for a long time, pay a little bit a month, and call it a day. Like you won't even know the money's missing.
Yep.
But you're going to know that you've got $500K missing in 2 years.
Would you rather have $500K in your checking account, or would you rather have no student loan balance? Really, if push comes to shove and your life gets stressful, would you rather have the money? I would rather have the money.
1,000%.
And can you do better with that money? Can I do better than 2.3% on my money than, which is my rate on my student loan? Yes, I believe I can.
Go to cryptocurrencies, guys. You'll do a hell of a lot better than 2 point whatever.
No. Yeah.
We're big believers here in cryptocurrency, but as I think about that whole thing, debt and money, and people are really stressed about this right now, about how do I grow? I want to open up another location. And we get this question here all the time. When do you decide that my footprint here is so big, I've got to grow to another location? Like, when is the decision? Because I had a business, I owned a CrossFit gym, and we decided to expand to another location. And I kicked myself every day for a year for doing it, because I should have just taken what I had. My pond was full of catfish and built that and not grown to the next location. But there's some like ego thing about
I would tell you,
want to get bigger. Why do we do this?
It's a personality thing. We talk to people who are either like, oh, hell no, am I opening a second location? One is enough for me, thank you very much, right? Or, oh no, I want to open all these locations, right? And so it's really like kind of comes down to your personality. I would say no shoe is the right size for everybody. It kind of comes down to what you want to do and what your personality is. But what you really have to think about is your first space like maxed out? Have you fished from that pond completely before moving on to the next? Because that next space, now you got staffing to deal with again. And people forget. I feel like they get into year 7, 8 of their practice, or even 5. Things are going great. Everything is smooth. Just like with having a baby, right? Your baby's 3 years old and you're like, I think I'll have another one. You go through pregnancy again, you have that baby, you have that newborn, you're not sleeping, and you're like, what was I thinking? But you forget. You forget how hard it was to start it. So just be prepared, know what you're getting into. We always say, have a plan, have a plan.
I say it's just like kids. I've actually given a lecture on this exact topic, and I'd say 1 is 1, 2 is a million.
2 is a million, and 3,
You don't even know the exponential work that you have when you scale from 1 to 2. I think 1 to 2 is much harder than 7 to 10. Because the idea of having 2 staffs, 2 locations, then you try to split your staff between both. That never works. They're going back and forth. You try to share resources. Well, that's very hard to do because this practice looks different than this practice. Or try to make it all the same even is very, very hard. I think training is impossible for some folks when they think about splitting their locations in half. But to that point, question for you, thinking about injectors who do own a practice going from 1 to 2, and their name is on it, and it's like their brand and their thing, and they're the famous injector, and now they're trying to scale that to locations. What do you see when that happens from a business standpoint? What's the hiccup there? Because I think there are many hiccups there.
Well, yeah, I'm sure there are lots of hiccups there, and I think for one, you have to think about when you're branding your practice and when you're thinking about what do you want this to be. Do you want to be the star? Do you want to be the face? Do you want it to be you? Or because at some point you're going to be tired. At some point, you are going to run the business and maybe not want to be the one injecting all the time. So I think you have to think about, do we want the brand to say me, or do we want the brand to have something that doesn't have to do with me? Maybe I'm the face, but maybe it allows for other providers. Or we can, train people exclusively like under our name and under our way, and this is a provider that's brought up under me, and so it's the same. But I think you have to think about whether you're creating a business that is you or a business that can run outside of you. Is it me, or is it intentionally not me? And I think that's kind of the key.
Because now I want to sell it, and it has my name on it,
That's
and it's
right.
all me. And they can't have me because I want to sell it, move on to something different. Then what happens?
That's right.
You are the face. But I think when the reason this comes up, I had this discussion actually this week, is a person said, oh, but I drive so much revenue in my practice, I can open another. I'm like, but you can't drive that same revenue in 2 places
You
on
are
the same
one
day at the
person.
same time. So
Yep.
stop multiplying yourself by 2. It ain't the way it works. You're going to have to now divide it by 2 for one, because you're going to have to manage 2 businesses, 2 staffs, and you can't inject in 2 places on the same day.
That's right.
So it's like they forgot this whole part of, wait a minute, I've got to pay another salary to not only another salary to manage it, I can't do it, and now I've got to actually take an admin day too to do all the administration
right,
work.
that's
It's like,
right.
yeah, it ain't fun. Like
No.
I tell you, it's hard. It's hard work.
Well, and people don't get into this. Some do, but we find that most people don't get into this because they love business.
Yeah.
They get into this because they love the work, right? They love working on patients and all of that. And that's their passion. The business part comes along with it, but you really have to take the time to to work on the business too. I'm sure you guys talk about that a lot. And it's not always easy. You have all these patients, you want to see them. That means revenue. Taking the time to work on the business, you're not making money while you're doing that. But it's so important. So if you're the type that's gonna consider expanding, you gotta make sure that you increase that time to work on the business. And that means you're probably doing less.
We have this discussion. We were in Amazon this week in Seattle. We were talking about working on the business and working in the business, and those are vastly different concepts. And I think for a lot of people, they get into this and think that they're going to be able to do both, and they realize, I want to be an injector again, or I want to be, a laser tech or an esthetician. I don't want to do all this work again. And we often say, from a marketing perspective, when it comes to the marketing side, go hire a marketing firm. Like, you're not a marketer. You're a great injector. That's your skill set. No one's asking the marketing guy to inject. No one's asking
that's
you to be a marketer. I think it's the same for you guys. We tell clients all the time, stop looking like through the world to become a financial expert. You're not going to be one unless you go back to school and learn the trade, become a CPA. Go hire a person to do it for you. So what do people say, the trade-off between paying you guys to do their books for them and them thinking that they're going to take it on themselves and do as good of a job?
So, we do have people that are in there doing their own QuickBooks, doing their own budgets, doing their own pro formas, making their own goals, which I think it's great that people give it a shot and do it. And some do it very well, like probably not the QuickBooks side of things, but we do have some that are very intentional about setting their goals and understanding how much they can make per hour. And I think that's really good. But if you think about, and we recommend bookkeepers. So, we want you to outsource the bookkeeping part. And we have a whole list of people that we recommend, but that's the first thing you got to do. So if you're doing your own books, if you're in there in your own QuickBooks, stop today, please. Okay, it is not, I'm telling you, it is not that expensive to outsource that. You can afford that. Take the time and work on other aspects of your business that are more valuable. Secondly, if your books are done by a bookkeeper, right, and you're looking at it and you're like, it's Greek, I don't understand it, so I'm not going to do anything with that, then you're also not getting the best return on your investment. So take that, and that's where we come into play, and we help you understand what even does this mean. But you really have to think about, what are you good at? What are you not good at? What do you want to spend your time doing? And where's your most value? Where can you drive the most value in your business based on what you're naturally good at and what you're passionate about? And I actually share that same thing because I really love working with clients. I really love working with clients, but I have to run my business too, right? So it's a balancing act for me. Like, I get it. I have to set time aside to run the business because I don't want to stop working with clients because I love it. That's what I love, and that's what's nice about having a team around you, either internally or externally, is you can pick the parts that you like and have someone else do the rest, especially if you're not an expert or trained in that area. I don't do my marketing. I don't do it.
Well, this is a hard lesson, Jessica, for all of us here to learn. And I have adopted this saying that you should do the things that only you can do, which has been like the hardest lesson I've ever learned in my 30 plus years of life. Is even thinking about in our business, I love our customers. I would love to go to their practices all day long and spend time with them and help them think about their promotions and their Black Friday sales. But who's going to do all the other things we have to do, right? The other things have to be done, like, running the business. And so I've been really focusing on me personally, like delegating things that I don't have to do. And I look at the software part of our business, like building your account in aesthetic record. It takes a person, to learn the software and build it 30 hours, 40, 50 hours. I don't know. It takes a lot of time. And I'm like, do you want to give them an entire week of injecting, like a whole week of injecting? Just cancel your patient's call today and build the system all day long? Or do you want to pay a couple $100 for us to do it for you? Like, what's the better use of your time? And to your point about expenses, they're like, but it's expensive to have you do it. I'm like, no. It's a tremendous cost savings for me to do it because I'm going to cut out 45 hours of the work for you because you injecting toxin in one appointment pays for this entire setup. So I think it's getting people to think about, to your point, expenses versus like what you're going to lose if you do it yourself. Like, you're not only going to spend money, you're going to also lose out on it. And I struggle with this concept all the time. So do our customers. So yeah, I'm all about that life. I hear you on that one.
Yeah, opportunity cost. What are you missing out on because you're not doing other things that are more valuable and more important, for sure. It is hard, though. I struggle with the delegating. I don't delegate well either necessarily, unless there's some things that I'm like, I know I'm not good at that. Someone else can do it. But if I enjoy it, even if I can delegate it, sometimes I want to hold on to it. So I get it.
And I'm in a startup, as are you. And I think it's, we're our own janitor here. Sometimes we're doing all the things. So I think as a startup, you learn to do everything because you don't know how you're going to find time to teach somebody else to do it and onboard them and hire them and get it all done. I think for me, it's more of a time constraint. I think as a new owner of a business, especially med spa, it's the same way. How am I going to treat patients and recruit patients and find a person to come take over the marketing?
That's right. I know.
Like, there's just not enough time in the day. So,
But you got to think about the time I put in today means I won't be doing it next week or the week after. It pays me back, right? I get more in the end. I just need to take the time and do it now. Delegate it now. Train people now. That I won't have to do it later. You just got to suck it up and get it done.
discipline is hard when it comes to onboarding and training. But to that point, you mentioned that you guys are doing stuff with startups now, like a startup project. Tell us about that.
We're really trying to, figure out. A lot of people are trying to get their business going, and we want to help them understand the financial implications of that. Like, how much money do they need to go borrow? What, can they expect to bring in? What can they expect to spend? What's this going to cost them? When will they break even? How much money will they need to plan to set aside for working capital? How much can they afford for equipment? Can they afford to hire someone now, or should they wait 6 months? All those questions, we map it out from a financial perspective. So, we're all about making a plan, and we're really putting together a product that makes sense for people thinking about opening a business, whether it's a med spa or any healthcare business. Really, we've got a good system down where we can help people make those decisions and see their vision come out in a financial plan.
And bring it to life. Well, it's interesting. We had a person on, Leslie Tracy, who does a lot of like insurance, contingency planning, business continuation insurance and things. And she was talking about, these injectors, their hands for one. If you're a physician, a
Yes.
surgeon, you know to insure your hands, right? Everyone knows you insure your hands if you're a surgeon. But in the med spa world, they don't do it, right? They don't insure, for instance, their hands. Or they don't think about business continuation coverage and what happens if my partner in the business dies, like who gets to
Yes,
share.
absolutely. Yes.
So do you guys work sort of on that part of it too, of like helping the people understand disaster will happen in some form in your life, like prepare for that up front?
Yeah, we love working with attorneys at the beginning of the whole thing. Or even, I'm telling you guys, if you're considering having a partner and being in a partnership, right? Then you got to outline not only the disasters, but the good things. Like, how are we going to share this amazing profit we're going to make? But also, like you said, what happens if someone dies? What happens if someone's disabled? What happens if someone moves away? Like, we got to address all that at the beginning. So we really like to have a good set of documents that outlines that at the beginning. Insurance, we love to recommend insurance. We'll send you to an insurance guy who can make sure you're taken care of. But life insurance, disability insurance, the bank might want insurance. If something happens to you and you're the provider, the bank's in a bad position. So the bank might want insurance. But, we also don't want you to get like suckered into some crazy insurance that you don't need. What kind of insurance might be right for those sorts of things? So we try to guide and then bring in partners who can help make that final decision. But, it's fun to think about the dream and like the vision, and let's lay it out, and I'm going to have this many patients. But you do have to, like, what catastrophically can happen? We got to be prepared. And I will say, coming out of a pandemic, like, if anyone would have said a few years ago, what if you have to close your practice for 2 months and you can't work? Like, what? No, that will never happen, right? But now I feel like, okay, we've done that. We know what we needed to do. We did it, right? We know what we learned and how we could come back stronger and how we can make a plan to come back stronger. So you can't predict everything. You just never know.
Yeah. I think about 2020 as just like the year that everything went to hell in a handbasket. But my gosh, we learned a lot.
Definitely.
I mean, shockingly, we learned a lot. We survived it. But I think about inventory to that point. When people came in to set a record, we were so busy during the pandemic because everyone, to the credit of the pandemic closing us all down, gave them time to think about, am I making any money? I've got to trim the fat. We heard so much about waste and expenses and all these things that people were realizing, like, do I need the, all the fun things in the lobby, or do I need to, make enough money to survive? Like, what's the trade-off here? But the big thing we heard about was inventory and holding costs and carrying costs of inventory. And people don't think about that in our business because they feel like filler is on the shelf for a day, it gets injected, it's done. But then you have to anniversary that at the end of the year of like, it's on the shelf, it's actually an asset sitting there doing nothing for you. Like the whole holding cost idea, which in manufacturing is like the norm, right? You think about holding costs in manufacturing all the time. Here we don't. So on an inventory basis for accounts, what is your like ordering plan for them? Do you tell them to think about what they're ordering, how long to keep it? Like, give us some ideas on that.
Well, we don't typically go into inventory all that much, but I will say, unless your practice is in the middle of nowhere, it does not take forever to get things. You know what I mean? So I don't think that you need to keep like this giant supply on hand. We really watch the supply as an expense of what you're generating, because we really want to make sure that that's not increasing or decreasing. Do we have a problem? We want to make sure that that you do have a good system in place. Do you know how much is on the shelf? Do you know when it expires? Do you know what you're using, not using? Are you buying stuff that you're not using? Who's ordering? Do we have everyone in the office with the ability to order, or is it just one? Do we have a budget? Do we give them a budget? This is how much you can order of each thing based on what we did the month before. But I think just know that, you don't have to keep like this crazy stock unless you're using it quickly and often, because you can get it pretty quickly. Now, you got to take in consideration buying in bulk and the discounts and all of that kind of stuff that you might get, but don't get too much that you're not going to be able to use it. And let's just make sure that overall we're driving enough revenue to make these costs make sense.
Yeah, we have people who do, terms for 90 days and put it on their Amex to get another
yeah.
30 days on it. Like, that's genius. It's 120 days of interest-free
That's right.
loan. Why
Love
wouldn't you
it.
do that?
And you
pay
get
it
the
all back.
points.
And you get the points for a nice trip to Maui or wherever else you want to go. But I do think that people don't understand inventory. I think it's one of the KPIs, the metrics, or the data points that people ignore. Like, oh, we're going to sell through all this in no time at all. Like, but are you? How much of it's shrinkage, loss, expiration, turnover? And because COGS in this industry are 50% of most people's, revenue number, it's so high here, it gets forgotten about. But I'm like, guys, if you're thinking about your HR costs and not your inventory costs, like, are you focusing on the right things?
That's right. It is about focusing on the right things. And, I'll say too that people aren't tracking it right on their financials. They're oftentimes expensing it, and we don't see that balance kind of in front of our faces on a regular basis. And a lot of times they don't track it right in their software either. So we really don't know how much we have. So that might be a good first step, is to inventory your stuff and enter it so that you can see what you have, what's coming in, what's going out.
Yes, good best practice, guys. Use your inventory software and chart your procedure so you can see what's coming out. Because I think those are the things, I feel like in business in general, all these little tiny things keep adding up. And all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, where'd all that money go? It's like, well, you weren't tracking things that were your business drivers, if you will.
And that's one of the hardest things, I talk about a lot. What are the costs that can get out of whack? We talked about some of them, payroll and the whole supplies. That is a hard one, right? Because it's so many little things. It's so many little things, and sometimes so many people's hand in the pot. It is really hard to see what's truly happening.
Yeah, we have a system in place for our software where you have purchase orders. You can see who's ordering. Because I will tell you, one of the things as a rep, I was a Galderma rep for a couple of years, is I'd have the same office call with the same order 4 times in a day. And if I had just put that in, they would have had 4x the amount because no one's talking to each other.
Right.
It's like, wait a minute, who's got the authority to even order?
That's
well,
right.
I guess everyone does here, right? Because we're all putting in an order. And once you order that with the manufacturer, you can't walk it back. It's like, it's in, you're done. So I think even those sort of small things, it's, whatever you do with excellence, you do all things with excellence, if you will, following that sort of mentality of we've got to watch everything that's coming in and out. I know it's very, very hard, but a good practice manager or even a good bookkeeper, to your point, could be really helpful for a practice need to stay on track. So don't do it by yourself, guys. Hire some help. Hire a legal team, an HR person, and obviously, without a doubt, a financial consultant, planner, advisor, dragon slayer, ninja, whatever you want to call them. Make sure you hire them too. Well, anything you want to tell us about what's coming up for you and your next, well, I guess by the time this airs, we'll be in AMSPA together next week.
Yes, we'll be in Vegas, so we're excited about that. We'll have a booth, so if you're hearing this, come see us. We'll have a booth. We're speaking, and just excited to meet everybody and see everybody there and hang out with you. And it's always so fun. So I guess this will be the 3rd year that I've been at AMSPA, the Med Spa show. But I remember the first year I was like, gosh, everyone is so nice, and everyone knows each other. That's the other thing too, right? Everyone knows each other. Everyone's so nice. But we really love seeing everybody, and we love learning about what everyone does because we want to help our clients. So, we diagnose the problems in the financials, but usually we're not the ones to fix them. Usually we say, listen, we got someone who can help you with this. Let us connect you with so-and-so, they can help you. So it's a perfect time for us to kind of get our toolbox of the people who can help us make our clients better.
You'll be at Aesthetic Next, we hope.
Yes.
We're calling it right now. You're coming to Aesthetic Next,
will be
for
there.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think giving people access to even your expertise, I think about speaking in general, to kind of roll back for a quick second. We get asked a lot with the conference, like, I want to get paid to speak. I want a big, giant honorarium to speak. I'm like, this is how you grow your business, even as an injector, to become the expert in your community, to become the guru, the KOL. Like, this is, for AR, for us, me speaking helps our business grow. I'm not going to take payment for that's what helps us. Oftentimes we're paying to speak, right? You're having to pay a sponsorship to speak. But I feel like all this free education that you get at like an AMSPA, they're learning from you, learning incredible amounts of detail about how to run their business at no cost. And people don't come to sessions. You're carpe diem. Like, you're getting such great information. So anyway, guys, if you're there, go listen to all the business sessions.
And we really have a passion for teaching too. I mean, really, we do this because we like to help people, and we like to help people understand. We want them to understand. We want them to learn. So, really, I love, as much as I will almost throw up before I have to get on that stage, right? I do love people when they come up later and say, oh, I learned so much. I finally understand. I get it now. Thank you for telling me that. It's so, that's my favorite part. But we also have launched something on Instagram, LinkedIn called Maven Minute. We want to just share little tidbits of information as we go. If we're seeing, hey, practices are struggling with this right now, what are we seeing that's working? We're going to put it out there. We want to help. We want to teach. We want people to learn.
Eventually, over time, they end up coming to you as a client, I'm sure, because they're getting all this great knowledge from you. Like, you're the expert. I think about this podcast. I wanted to have a financial component to it this season. And because I know you guys are everywhere, you're offering your expertise, of course I was going to call you. I wanted you to be the one to do it, right? Because you do all these other things, I know that you're investing in education. So I feel like there's, you get an ROI on doing it. You spend your time doing it right at no cost, all these things that we do, but it comes back to full circle because people want to come, you're in their mind the expert.
Yeah,
So
that's what we hope. We hope that, people will remember us and they'll think, oh, that was interesting to listen to. I think I could talk to her for an hour about my numbers. I think I'll call her. And we do, for your listeners, we also offer like a complimentary financial assessment, we call it. So if you're just like, I just don't even know what's happening, like give us a call. We'll take a look at your financials with you. Tell us what we see that might be off, what you should focus on, where that energy should be going and running your business.
my last question about numbers, and I'll shush, is if I wanted to buy a practice, an existing practice, can I have somebody from that group send you their numbers and you can tell me if I should or shouldn't buy them and if it's a good decision?
What we can tell you is how much money you would make, right? If you kept the same amount of revenue and the same cost, and we could look at the cost with you and say, well, you may not do this, but you might do this, so let's swap that for that. And then I think the other thing that would be helpful is, how much are they selling it for you? Does that make sense? Because based on what you're making, how long is it going to take you to get your money back, right? We don't want that to be too long. And secondly, how should you finance it, right? Because we're going to go call a bank because we already said we love debt. So we're calling a bank. We're getting a 10-year loan. How much is that payment going to be? What's left over for you, right? Are they sticking around to do to be the provider, or is that you? Is that taking away from your other practice? Like some of these things you got to think about so you can see really how much can you expect to make from that practice.
I find practice valuations an incredibly hard thing to do, because people forget to think about if the person whose name is on the door again leaves, do patients go with them? Is there a non-solicitation clause in the contract?
You got to build all that in.
Are we losing all our memberships? When people are going to leave and go somewhere else, you're buying this book of business, but what's going to happen when the doors, the name on the door changes? Are they going to stay here or not stay here? Do you change the name of the practice or not?
Well, and that's why most people will keep around that seller. Like if you can't just leave, you're staying here with me for a bit, transition these patients, train me in your ways, let me, let everybody know that this is going to be the same product that they're used to, the same service that they're used to. And then maybe after a year or so you can go. That really helps.
Yeah, I feel like that's right now everyone's wanting to buy and sell in this industry. It's flooded with money. PE money is everywhere. So yeah, I think, if you're thinking about buying a practice, get an expert. Like have somebody
definitely
come in and tell you if this is a good business
run the numbers for
or
you.
not. Because if it's not, it's a long-term marriage that you want to get out of.
Absolutely. That's the thing with this business, right? Especially partnerships, having a partner, having a business in general. You can't say tomorrow, I'm good, changed my mind, I went out. No, you're in it. You are in it.
Especially if you have employees, because you got to pay payroll.
Yes.
Well, and I think during Corona, we figured that part out, that payroll has to get paid regardless. And so if you're the business owner, you're going to make no money and you're going to be paying into payroll because nothing's coming in the front door. There is no revenue. We also started getting really good at skincare during COVID, really good at skincare. It was great for that business model. But yeah, I think that there's just so much to learn and do in this business to be good at it. And if you're at home thinking about this and struggling with it, call Maven, call Jessica, get this, at least a free consultation, right? Just like you ask your patients to do. And figure out what is that treatment plan financially, right, for the whole year to get your books back in
financial
order.
Treatment plan. I like that. Yeah. That's what we're going to do.
Put
financial
it on the
treatment
website.
Plan. We'll put it on the website.
That's a new
when you see it, we'll
verbiage.
put it. See Tiffany.
I'm going to TM that. She owes me money.
That's right.
$1 per click on that one. No, I'm just kidding. But how do we find you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so our website, mavenfpfinancialpartners.com. Is a good place. We have an email address in there that'll go right to all of us to check out, and we'll give you a call.
And your Instagram handle, you got to tell us that.
At Maven Financial Partners. So,
Okay.
And LinkedIn too, Maven Financial. I think we're Maven Financial. Yep. So check us out there. It's all on our website too. Send us an email, info@mavenfp.com as well. But yeah, we're really trying to put out good content. That's one of the things we're working on right now, is trying to get engagement, content. And again, I already said that the marketing is not my thing, but I like teaching and I like telling people, listen, let me give you a little tidbit of advice of what we're learning right now. So that's what we want to do.
Education is the best SEO you'll ever have. Like,
Well, good, because I like it.
without a doubt, video, content, all the things. Because people who enjoy reading your things or enjoy listening to you will come to you for information. It's not like, all the bad blogs I read. I'm like, oh gosh, that's just a bunch of keywords stuffed in a blog to get Google to like it. It's just terrible. But thank you for putting out good content. We appreciate that.
Yes,
That's good.
yes,
Good for everyone.
yes.
And I think the Maven Minute's a great idea. Guys, go check that out. Good tips and tricks there. But we send you guys customers all the time, or our customers, because you make sense of our chaos, of our data and our spreadsheets. So we're going to keep sending our folks over to you. But guys, if you're,
Well, thanks, you as
if
well.
you need any help with this, you guys know how to find me. But certainly call Jessica, call the firm. A female-owned business, my favorite. So
ma'am.
go diversity in the business owner world. But yeah, we will see you at AMSPA next week. And give us any final words or thoughts before we sign off today.
Well, you guys, I think, the fact that if you've held on this long through this session, then I would say that congratulations that you're working on your business. You're learning about the business. You're trying to think of how you can improve your business from a financial perspective. And, that's hard to do. And so keep doing that. Keep working on your business. Obviously I'm going to say understand your numbers, because that's what I think you should do. But congrats for, taking that effort and for listening to us and learning how to make your business better.
Well, you heard it here first, guys. And for the record, you've been a fantastic guest. Thanks for coming into our studio
Thank
today
you.
and being
Thank
live.
you.
We will see all of you guys next week on episode 4 of season 2 of For the Record. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening to another episode of For the Record. This podcast is not intended to provide legal or medical advice. It's for entertainment, education, and information purposes only. For more information on this week's guest or to get started with Aesthetic Record, email us at info@aestheticrecord.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more fresh perspectives on disrupting the status quo and surviving in the aesthetics industry.